Welcome back from Hockey Exile. I hope you're enjoying your summer. Today, I'm going to talk to you about grading the Toronto Maple Leafs in the offseason, as I do every single year. But before we get started, I want to ask you to please give me a thumbs up and smash that subscribe button if you happen to be new to the channel. Let's begin. Now, the way this is going to go is I'm going to talk to you about key arrivals, then talk about key departures, then talk about the re-signings. I'll give you my opinion on how the lineup is going to look. I'll throw in a little trade talk here and there. And last but not least, I'll give you my grade so we can shut this thing down and you can get back to the beach or the water park or at least the watermelon, maybe. Before we get into the real beef here, I just want to talk about some minor league signings. Boyd, Lettieri, and Gruel. I think they'll all be playing in the minors, obviously. But then there's defenseman Henry Thrun, who they got in exchange for Ryan Reaves, which, honestly, I didn't think was possible to get anything for him at that point. He was waived last season, of course, down to the minors. Wasn't happy about it, obviously. And I thought that would be the status quo going forward. But they got a taker in the Sharks. And Leafs got back a defenseman with some upside. Now, Henry Thrun is 24 years old, has a birthday in March. Born in Massachusetts, is 6'2", 200 pounds. But he shoots left. And the Leafs have an abundance of left shots. Just in general, really. I see Tyler Myers has a better chance of getting into the lineup as a right-hand shot defenseman than does Thrun. However, if Benoit has an injury or they decide to scratch him from time to time like they did last season, maybe they can shoot Henry Thrun right in there to play opposite OEL. But OEL also plays left, his natural side, so if Benoit was to come out, maybe they just push OEL to the left where he's better suited and then bring up Tyler Myers, which is why I see getting Thrun into the lineup a little difficult. Will he play at least 30 games or will he be a trade chip somewhere else? We'll see, but he is a two-way defender. Last season in 60 games with San Jose, he had 2 goals and 12 points, playing just under 18 minutes a game. Moving on, let's get into the main course here, starting with Nicolas Roy. As you know, they got him in the Vegas trade, in which Marner went the other way. He's 28 years old, has a birthday in February, is 6'4", 202 pounds, and he's a right shot and a centerman, which is very important here. He's one of, 3 righties on the team, and that includes Yankrok. He's a great penalty killer, not particularly tough, but he can be nasty. Look at the cross-check on Darnell Nurse during the playoffs. He's got 2 more years left on his contract at $3 million per, and in 71 games last season had 15 goals and 31 points, playing just over 15 minutes a game. Now, we'll talk about lineups later, but some people do have him as a 2C. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'll be 3C. Vegas even had him at 4C at times, but I think he'll fit in just wonderfully. Now, he doesn't have the greatest face-off percentage. It's around 48%, but we'll talk about his line mates later, which could alleviate that. Next, let's talk about Matthias Misselli, who the Leafs got for 4th rounder from the I almost said Phoenix Coyotes. The Utah Mammoth, he's 24, has a birthday in October. 5'11", 176 pounds, and shoots left. This is the final season of his contract at just over $3.4 million. He'll be an RFA with Arbrights afterwards. As we all know, in 55 games last season, he had a down year with the Mammoth with only 18 points and 8 of those goals. But his ice time was cut by almost 3 minutes per game from the previous 2 seasons. Speaking of which, the season before, he had 57 points. The season before that, he had 49. He has the ability to be a great playmaker with wonderful vision in the offensive zone, and he is known as a two-way winger, so he's not a complete liability on the defensive zone. He's actually from Finland, by the way, but he has an Italian name, and for some reason, I thought he grew up in Toronto. Maybe he did. Next up is Dakota Joshua. I'm really excited about this pickup for only a 4th round pick from the Vancouver Canucks. Bit of a salary dump, I believe, on their part. He's making over $3.2 million in the next few seasons. He's 29 years old, has a birthday in May, 6'3", 206 pounds, and he shoots left. He can play right wing and center, but he mostly plays left, and he has a pretty decent face-off percentage as well. More on that later. Now, he had a bit of a down year last season as he was dealing with testicular cancer, missed training camp, a chunk of the beginning of the season. In 57 games, he had 14 points, 7 of those goals. But the season before that, 63 games, 18 goals, 32 points, and he averaged just over 14 minutes a game. He hits, he fights, he's very north-south and hard to play against. I think he's going to be a perfect fit in that bottom 6. Not to mention the last playoffs he was in with Vancouver. In 13 games, he had 4 goals and 8 points, averaging just under 16 minutes a game. He was a terror out there. As you'll find out when you go online, a lot of Vancouver fans, they're sad that he's left. A Michigan boy, by the way, and originally drafted by by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now let's breeze through the key departures real fast, starting with Mitch Marner. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know. Your ears are probably bleeding from all the Marner news already. Let's just say I think it was good for Marner and for the Maple Leafs. Pontus Holmberg, I actually thought he would have been the Leafs' 13th forward, as he can play any forward position and he can move up and down the lineup. Now he's got hands of stone really, but he's great along the boards, big body, and he played pretty decently in the playoffs as well. I thought he would have stayed, for example, over players like Yankruk or Kampf or even Robertson. Ryan Reeves, I already touched on him. He's gone to San Jose. Alex Steeves is no longer with the club. Matt Murray was signed with Seattle. Best of luck to him. And Nick Abruzzese is also gone. Let's get back to the exciting stuff here and talk about the re-signings, starting with JT. What a sweetheart deal at just over $4.3 million. Now, I remember thinking before this signing happened that he had to sign under 5 or we would just let him walk. Now, I know it's hard to get centers out there, and that's easier said than done, but he had obviously stated he wanted to stay in Toronto. The Leafs had some leverage here, but I can't give all the credit to Trevling. I think JT saw the writing on the board. They know the fans are loving him already for this contract, which is 4 years, by the way, with a no move in the first 2 seasons and a modified no move in the last 2. He's 34 years old, has a birthday in September, but he had 38 goals and 74 points last season in 75 games. It's pretty damn good. 7 points in 13 playoff games, not too shabby, but I think we were all hoping that he would be Toronto's third line center by now, be playing on the wing, and it looks like he's gonna be playing 2C again, as opposed to who? Nick Watt? I doubt it. Matthew Knies, another great signing by Trevling. Now he was an RFA, obviously, but he gets a 6-year contract worth over just $7.7 million per season. Now that walks him to a UFA, but I'm fine with this. Do I wish it was 8 years? Sure. But I was hoping he was going to get paid $8 million or more. That would have really handcuffed them in terms of roster construction. And Knies is just getting exponentially better every season. Starting with this past one, in 78 games, he had 29 goals, 58 points, playing just under 19 minutes a game. And in 13 games this past playoffs, he had 5 goals, 7 points. That's 14 points in a total of 27 playoff games. This guy's a unicorn, and he's a Maple Leaf. Who would have thought? Now, Steven Lorentz, I'm happy they signed him. Did they really have to give him 3 years, though, for a 4th line bruiser? Don't get me wrong, everyone seems to like this guy, especially on the team. He even had a few drinks of water up and down the lineup during the season. For a guy who's 6'4" and 216 pounds, though, he's just not quite mean enough on the ice for me. He hits a lot, obviously, but I like him to turn that happy face upside down. Dip your toe into that rat category. He's 29, has a birthday in April, another left shot. Last year, in 80 games, he had 8 goals, 19 points, and just over 10 minutes of ice time. In 13 playoff games, he had 2 assists with just over 12 minutes in ice time, and is signed for just over $1.3 million for 3 seasons. Now, they also signed Dakota Mermis, a depth defenseman who will mostly just be playing in the minors. But lastly here, I want to talk about Nick Robertson. Signs a 1-year deal at just over $1.8 million just before it goes to arbitration. He'll be an RFA with Arbrights for next season. He's 23 right now, but he'll be 24 in September. Another left shot, and in 69 games last season had 15 goals, 22 points, playing 12 minutes a game. And in 3 games he did play in the playoffs, he had 1 goal and 2 points. It just seems obvious Berube doesn't want to use him in the playoffs, but if I was the coach, before I sent him on vacation, I would have told him to sit down and watch Theon Fleury highlights all summer long. Now, I know his character has been questionable since he retired, but his play on the ice was feisty, and he scored goals. Highlight ones. Now, Robertson's game has improved lately, right? He was more defensively responsible, he was back-checking more, he was staying on his feet more often, was harder to play in the corners. This is just another guy I'd like to see play more angry, because I think he has another gear. But this could be all moot, and he could be traded in a week, so... Now, before we look at my lineup construction, I just want to touch on Easton Cowan. He does have a chance to make this team, but I think it's more likely he plays in the Marlies for most of the season anyways. He's actually a right wing with a left-hand shot. I think we all know how much he's been killing it in the minors the past few seasons. He's got blue chip potential, so if he isn't part of any trade, I see him playing at least 50% of the time, to begin the season anyways, with the Marlies. Okay, roster construction. Let's bust out the real estate pad here. Now the goalies are set, right? Stolleraz, Wall. It's all about who's going to be the third man in. Is it Hildeby, who saw about 6 games last season, or is it going to be Artur Akhmetiov? I probably brutalized that name, so I apologize. But by now, you know I'm pretty awful with pronunciations. I think I'm fine with either of those guys stepping in as a third goalie, but with the injury history of Stolaras and Wall, I may be just a little bit worried. The defense, peanut butter and jelly, right? McCabe and Tanev, Riley and Carlo, Benoit and OEL, and then your fourth pair is Thrun and Myers. Could a trade be coming there? More on that a little later. The forward group, starting with the first line. Nyes obviously will be on the left with Matthews at center, and it's most likely going to be Domi on the right side. He's played with them before. He's had some success. I know Domi also played a little bit with JT in 88, had some chemistry, but I think if there's any other place he plays besides the first line, it'll probably be the third. Second line, obviously JT and William Nylander. Who's going to play on the left? Could it be Maselli or could it be Brian McMahon? I'm going to go with Maselli. He's got some defensive acumen, and I would guess that Berube would consistently be starting that line in the offensive zone anyway. Hopefully that's not too much of an issue on the road. The third line, this is where it gets spicy. Watt in the center. He's a right shot, by the way, with a 48% face-off percentage. We talked about that earlier. So, what would be the next best fit for him? Someone who could maybe take those left dot face-offs away from him. Well, I'm thinking Dakota Joshua. As I mentioned earlier, he's about 58% in the face-off dot, although he's only taken about 60. He could play on the left, he could play on the right, and after that, I think it's either whoever doesn't play on the second line left wing, be it Maselli or McMahon. The only asterisk I have here is Nick Robertson, who I could see bump into that left wing spot if, for example, Bobby McMahon bumps down to the fourth line. Speaking of which, I've got Lawton at the center. I see some people still have Camp there. I don't know why. To me, he's as good as gone. Then I have Pezzetta on the left, another player who I don't see in anyone's mock-ups. Although I do have to admit, I don't think he'll be playing more than 70% max of the season. He's generally a player who doesn't play over 10 minutes a game, but his feistiness is definitely valued. So if Nick Robertson comes in for that third line, I see Bobby McMahon getting bumped down to the fourth line and Pezzetta coming out of the lineup. Now I have Lawrence playing on the right side. I know he generally plays on the left, but that's another option depending on which forwards they hold on to. For example, Lawrence can move to the left side, Pezzetta would come out, and Yankruk could move onto the right side, who is one of the only 3 guys who is a right shot on the team. Camp's the lefty. So let me just clarify that once again. On the third line, I got Waugh in the center, I got Bobby McMahon on the left or right wing, ditto with Dakota Joshua. On the fourth line, I got Pezzetta on the left, Lawton in the middle, and Lawrence on the right. Generally speaking, these aren't the players you're looking for. Now when it comes to trades and stuff, the Leafs still have some cap space here. Elliot Friedman came out, said there still could be a fit with Jack Roslovic, but he's probably going to demand anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5 from a contender. If he decides to go that route, or to a non-contender, he's probably making, 4.5 to 5.5 million. He plays mostly left wing, but can play right and center as well. He's not a lefty though, but he did match a career best last season in 81 games with 22 goals and 39 points. I could see him playing next to Matthews. I could see him playing next to John Tavares. I could see him playing on the third line. On the other side of things, if we're talking about pipe dreams, you've heard a lot of talk about Kadri, about Rasmus Andersson, both from the Flames, who Traveling's had a really hard time trading with, because you know why. Answer me this. If you could only trade for either Kadri or Rasmus Andersson, who would it be? Kadri's got about 4 years left on his deal, same age as Tavares, making $7 million a season. And then there's Rasmus Andersson, a right-shot defenseman, puts up anywhere from 30 to 50 points a season on his last year of his contract, making just over $4.5 million. Who's gonna demand a big raise? I love Kadri's spunk, but if it's me, I'm choosing Rasmus Andersson. Of course, what you trade for him is a complete different story. Are we talking about a contract extension? If that's so, Easton Cowan's probably in the conversation, Nick Robertson, plus, and what I would assume would probably have to involve Morgan Riley, who to this point does not want to waive his no-move clause. Actually, any deal involving a player like that would have to involve Morgan Riley, especially if it's Kadri. But if it's Andersson, it's possible you wouldn't necessarily have to trade Riley in order to make the money fit. But I'm far from a cap guru, and I'm awful at math, so don't listen to me. How do I grade this team's offseason? I think I'm going to give it a solid B. Yeah, they haven't gone out and got that top 6 guy, but they made some really good bets with Maselli, with Joshua, was a decent return. Pazzetta's a nice junkyard dog. The re-signing of Nyes and JT especially were magnifique. That's it, that's all. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and if you'd like to support me and my channel, you could do that through my crowdfunding page called Buy Me a Coffee. You could do a one-time donation or give as little as $1 a month. Please enjoy the rest of your summer, stay safe, and remember to be excellent to each other.